The Accidental Entrepreneur is brought to you with the help of our sponsor, AWeber, the world's leading small business email marketing and automation service provider. Since 1998, AWeber has helped more than 1 million small businesses and entrepreneurs through its suite of web-based email marketing, automation tools, and education. AWeber, the best option when it comes to marketing your business. The podcast is also brought to you by the Alternative Board. Since 1989, the Alternative Board, or TAB, has been one of the leading peer advisory and business coaching organizations for independent business owners and CEOs across the world. By facilitating peer advisory boards, private one-on-one coaching, and strategic planning services, TAB helps business owners improve their businesses in ways that change their lives. And be sure to check out our affiliate sponsor, One of One Productions, the New Jersey-based podcast studio that produces and edits both audio and video podcasts. They sell equipment for the avid podcaster and have even created a guesting kit exclusively for our listeners. And be sure to support the podcast by ordering some logo merchandise from our online store. Listen to all of our sponsors' commercials later in this episode and follow their links in the show notes to learn more about their products and services.
So I put up, I sat down, I started, and, when it was super painful, Mitch, if you get to that, you've written the book, editors, you get through it, you've seen this word so many times over 4 years, 3 years. You just hate, and you hate the book at this point. You don't even like it. It's not even your friend anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard. And so there I was. I had submitted it to the printing and everything, and now I had to face it page by page to extract the questions. It was literally rewrite. I had to rewrite every word. So I literally put up on the screen. On one side was the letter, and on the left side, I organized some Excel spreadsheets and started cranking out, content from the letter. What would I want? What does this letter present to me in a way of a question for somebody, a life question, somebody sitting across from me, and try to put myself in that position. And I think it's like, if you're starting a business, you want to frame it in the way of the customer somehow. Right. Yeah. So, and that's kind of what I went about it, was what's going to be that customer experience for people as they sit down. And I did start to get through and analyze, the questions from that viewpoint.
Right.
And am I going to get what I want out of it? We'll come back and touch on the 1.2. I did for sure. I was going to monetize the pod, and I thought I could make a business out of this, which turns out to be a little stupid. To your point, a little naive, a wee bit naive, but I'm okay with being a little naive because it still gives me hope.
People would be like, "That was like impossible," and you do it. You didn't know any better, right? Right.
I didn't want to know better.
Blow up your whole thing here.
I didn't want to know better.
To do this, Oh, my mic was down there. Okay. Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. And another great guest today. Excited to talk to Ken. Ken's a little bit unique. He's not exactly out there running a business, but he kind of is. And he's kind of changing the world. And he used to be in corporate. And I thought his story was so compelling. He had some great things to share that it would be a great conversation. He's also a fellow podcaster. So although he's hitting the road and I'm doing it behind a mic and a screen. So we'll see where that goes. If you're listening on your favorite audio directory, be sure and give us a 5-star review if you can give it to us. If you're watching us on YouTube, hit the subscribe button, like us, and all the other bells and whistles. So let's get on with the show.
The information provided in these episodes is for entertainment purposes only. It is not a guarantee of success or to be construed as advice of any kind. You should always seek advice from local licensed professionals before making any decisions.
The dictionary defines an entrepreneur as a person who organizes and manages any enterprise, especially a business, usually with considerable initiative and risk. People often start a business without much choice, perhaps due to a job loss or just being dissatisfied at work, and they come up with an idea they just know can be successful. They become entrepreneurs by accident. That is to say, their success or failure happens by accident, not with intention. My name is Mitch Beinhacker. I'm a corporate attorney and a business advisor. You're listening to The Accidental Entrepreneur, my podcast about how to achieve success on purpose, not by accident. Join me along with our monthly guests, where we share our knowledge and help you get a hold of your business. And now on to today's episode.
Hi, everybody. My name is Ken Stearns, and I'm the creator and the host of the JAR podcast. I've been traveling across the United States to 111 cities, interviewing 444 people with a jar full of 444 questions, all about really deep human topics, things that matter to us most. And it's been just a blast. I'm about halfway through, and we get to see people crystallize things that they think about, but they very, very, very rarely get an opportunity to express. So I hope you get a chance to join us there on the jar.live.
You like that professional opening there? Little the read. You like that dictionary? I wrote that myself.
It was a little disturbing when you got to the entrepreneur
Well,
part,
as
to
an
be
attorney, I always felt
honest.
I should have a disclaimer that nobody's listening and thinking I'm giving legal advice, but I probably don't need it.
Yeah, it kind of hit home the
Right.
accidental one. I wasn't, the entrepreneur part kind of was, it hurt. It hit a little,
Ken,
it hit
appreciate
hard, I
joining
should
me.
say.
I don't know where you
It's
are now,
different.
but last time we spoke, you were on your deck and you're traveling around, but I know you're not on the road today, right?
I'm not on the road. I'm kind of back. I'm on the road, I guess, permanently right now. I'm
Okay.
home. I'm intentionally
Well, you're in
homeless.
someone's bedroom, looks like.
Yeah, I'm intentionally homeless. I'm in someone's bedroom. I'm in my sister's house. So
Right.
I was at the lake house last time we chatted, but off the road. wasn't actively interviewing. And so I'm back in Atlanta and had taken a little break.
Right.
And so
but if
I'm getting
anybody's
back on the
watching this
road next week.
YouTube, the bohemian side of your life, you got long hair and you're throwback and you're loving life. You used to be a corporate guy, right? You used to. Yeah. So let's start there. Like
Absolutely.
your history and your background and what you.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, and again, Mitch, thanks so much for having me on. This is a great way. I loved our pre-discussion, and I think, like you said, I'm a little probably outside the normal in some ways for your guests, but I'll try to keep it some of the stories and stuff relative to what they may expect and what they're used to. So I kind of laugh. I call myself a well-seasoned Midwestern kid. So I'm an old white guy from the Midwest. Right. I grew up in the 60s and 70s, and I ended up with an accounting degree, and that accounting degree led me to meet salespeople. And I do what every good young accountant does when your wife is 3 months pregnant and you're seeing salespeople run around and enjoy life. You quit your job. And you take up a sale. Yeah, you just take up family's coming, so you drop your salary 60%,
American way,
and go take an insurance.
It was in insurance.
Take a sales job. It's what you do. Yeah, well, I was selling copiers and calculators door to door in LA.
Yeah,
back in if you can imagine a calculator, I used to be able to demo a calculator upside down, backwards.
In it, the roll.
With the tape, Monroe calculator. They were old school, really.
Still using it up until he got sick. Yeah, he wants the tape.
His 10 key. Yeah, we affectionately called the 10 key. Yeah, great stuff. So I did that. Of course, I got fired from that. Got fired from the next one. Got the job of last resort, insurance. Should have got fired somehow. Maybe the paperwork didn't come in on time, and then I started selling. I got lucky. And, I knew everything there was about insurance after 3 years, which, of course, right. And so I started sending out these notes to CEOs to tell them they should start this division. And one guy called, wrote me back and said, come see me. And, it turned into a job offer, and I had a seat at the table. So I wasn't on the outside as an agent. I was in California. Yeah, I was in California in insurance. All of a sudden I was a VP of something. And sitting at the table, and I was, wow. And that company got closed because of regulation, insurance. Actually, it was during the Clinton years. They were bringing in the universal health care. And we happened to have a unique product, and we were going to get legislated out. And I got sold with the business as my first corporate, corporate, kind of being tossed around. And it led me, oddly, to an opportunity to apply for a job in Asia. I had a particular sales experience, and they were looking for that for an American company to help start that in their local country operations. And so next thing I knew, my family and I were, living in Hong Kong, where I ended up living for 12 years and working a few different jobs, but always living in Hong Kong and working.
And that was fine?
I only spoke English. I never, it was fine. And you could travel around, and, at the senior level,
Right.
it's English mostly, right? And of course, there's a lot of exceptions, but translation's a thing.
Okay.
English documents help a lot. So yeah, I spent a lot of 20 something years, a lot in translation and different kind of communication. Think communicating
sure.
in English in corporate is difficult. Can imagine trying to share concepts and pass down expertise in insurance to different markets, different people, new generations. A fascinating, fun time. I ultimately got to live in 5 countries, work in probably 20. I'm sorry, live in 5, work in 20. Probably good, close knowledge of working style with about 100 CEOs
of their agents
over
to sell
the
products.
20. Yeah, exactly. So it was a bit of distribution build. So building distribution, the systems required to do that, the operations required to build something, alongside a current distribution model and service model, the training, recruitment, ultimately management of large sales organizations. I once in Indonesia, we had a crazy big company, 250,000 agents, 400 offices across the country.
Wow.
One company. And my third month there, I recruited 45,000 agents.
You should interview them all yourself.
Yeah, we had these mailbags. My intention was to break the system, and because it was broken and they couldn't recognize change. And I'm like, well, the only way I'm going to change these people is just completely to break the system. So my they threw up their hands and said, help. I can't, I don't even know how to manage this. And that's a whole fun story. Like some of the funniest outcomes you could ever imagine. Things I had no idea would happen.
Salesforce from another company and hire them all at the same time. That's crazy.
Oh, it's some funny stuff. Some really good It's a really good strategy. It's really integrated. It takes some time to set up.
You didn't have the internet.
We had an army. We had a good army.
All this online services, right? Wow.
Yeah. Oh, it was all by paper. The applications were all by. I don't know what happened to it. I'm really regretful of one photo, which was the mail bags that were flying in from the different airplanes that we would go to the airport to collect, the mail bags from the post office. And we just had this. Yeah, with the application, like their application, their face, their photo, and and just mail bags in this guy's corner of his office, just like 40,000. It was a great, anyway, great fun stuff. So it was an interesting career. Dynamic because of the languages, the cultures, the regulatory environment, different from market to market, the operational stuff. So really good fun. And, as far as keeping your appetite going,
right.
You're just switched on all the time, which ultimately leads to, kind of becoming a little burned out.
Yeah. All over there.
Yeah. 20 something years of that.
And you're dealing
all
with
over
home
there.
office here, right?
22 years.
Middle of the night, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Regional office, global office, all good fun stuff. Regulations across continents, and all kind of interesting. Just really fun, and especially for a lawyer, great fun. It's just super fun. But along the way, I knew this is going to come to an end, and I've seen how it came to an end for people. And what's the exit strategy? How do you get out and not die? How do you leave corporate life and not end up wrecked? And for me, it turned into what's that third act? Right. What's going to be, what am I going to do when I'm 70? You and I were
talking off the mic about mental wellness and health. Why do you think it's such a big topic in corporate America? Yeah. There's a reason for it. Yeah.
I was there, and I have seen so many instances of people really, hurting themselves. To stay in the game or for the money or because they had to, they don't have a lot of us are trapped in that system, right? It's hard to get out. So there was about 50, I got after that crazy job, that one I was describing, I went to break the system and ultimately I did, but it kind of broke me, I think, actually. And they put me in Thailand with a pacifier and a nappy in the corner.
What did your wife do when you were over there?
It's a great job. Eventually we were gone. We were separated. So ended up being divorced in Hong Kong. So yeah, so that first 12 years, around the 10 years, we made about 10 years over there. And I think it wouldn't have mattered whether we stayed or there or stayed here. We probably wouldn't have stayed married. So I was single. And so I had a lot of time. I came to Thailand, a much easier job, much softer. And so I was on vacation in the US and, I wanted to pick up guitar.
Never played the guitar before in your life?
For whatever reason, just compulsion.
Okay.
It's my third try. So, bought two as a kid,
Okay.
But I played trumpet for 8 years.
Right.
So I had some musical training, not super inclined. But I thought it was something I wanted to kind of do that for myself. No idea why. And I thought, and I want to spend money on a nice
You're
guitar.
entitled at this point.
To do that, I'm entitled, right? And I'm going to take lessons though. So I'm not just going to burn the money. I'll commit 2 years and then I'll see. And just, because I knew it's not fun to play.
And you don't enjoy what you're doing.
Yeah, and then you're not good, and it gets it's a cycle, right? And then eventually it just sits in the corner. I kind of attribute that to intentional stuff, and I think kind of this entrepreneurial stuff. You said the accidental, right, and getting away from the accidental part, and being more intentional. And I think that's one of the things in my life. There was some intention there. I didn't have an expected outcome on it. Other than I put some for me, it was like a little gate, just a gate point, just a checkpoint in 2 years. And, I'm going to go and commit to that. And that led me to meet somebody who inspired me to, write a song. So I had a guitar teacher and that led me to write some songs. And that led me to kind of get out some old letters that I had written as part of a book. So I had, much earlier, I was a business guy. I thought I was reasonably successful. There were times I would love to have called my dad.
Oh.
He died when I was like 28. So I had all this time in corporate time.
Right.
Love to call him. Dad, I got hired. I'm a VP. I'm a VP. I got fired. Like all these things you'd want to share with your father. Wasn't there. So I started that book called
Thailand
Dear
at this
Dad.
point?
Yeah, I was flying around probably. This had been even maybe while I was in Hong Kong but I was sitting in Thailand at this moment with a guitar teacher, and he kind of inspired me to get to do the writing, and that led me to pull out not that book but a book called Dear God, and because I had more words around Dear God, and I had actually just one so I had one letter that had a lot of words around it, and we wrote a letter. We stole the words from the book to create a song.
Your book, so
because I didn't know how to write a song. Yeah, and it was my book. Yeah, it was my book, and it was just and it was funny because it's just pieces of paper, right? It's just notes, letters. I was on the airplane scribbling in my notebook, and it was interesting because I ran out of letters.
Well, in that case, God.
In this one, it was Dear God. What's faith? What's love?
Is it more
what's
you
hope?
questioning?
What's forgiveness?
Basically? Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of like me. Exactly, like questioning. It's kind of like, did I get this right? Is love this?
And how old were you at this point?
Isn't love this? About 40 something when I started writing these letters. 50ish.
Right.
Yeah. I got some reflection. I got some time to. I've kind of seen some stuff by now. So ultimately, the book got driven by the guitar in a weird way, right? I ended up writing this book because of one intentional thing I did, not accidentally. I did it with intention,
anymore,
and accidentally,
you were like, "Well,
this happened."
Do this, and then something else came of it. You hadn't even considered,
and then something else came of it because I met
your teacher was like, "Hey, you ought to put this into a book."
Well, he was more about just write a song. And the craving and the enjoyment of writing the song, when I ran out of words that I'd written, I realized, I have to write more words to find more lyrics. Because I couldn't in my brain, I was not a songwriter.
Right.
I couldn't figure out how to just sit down and write a song. So I was stealing, it was kind of it was clever. Now I can write a song. Now I can conceptualize how to do it. But it forced me to start writing. I got rabid about writing more words. And then I got into the structure of the book. And I think the structure of the book, when I got that, that became the compassion. That really became the passion, was to complete that and to see as it developed and I fleshed it out, was it something I really believed in? Was there something there? And I think I did develop something that's kind of interesting.
Okay.
I've got this book of self. There's 4 parts to it. The book of self, and we talk about, masking about yesterday's, today's, tomorrow.
Okay.
The battlefield of our minds.
The Dear God book in
everything that's happened today.
Okay.
Yeah, in the Dear God book. So there's these 4 parts to it. And then there's the other part is the book of self, or book of others, between 2 people.
Okay.
Acceptance, forgiveness, compassion. Then you get into the book of all, which is
More of the
humanity,
big picture.
love, karma, service. More of the big picture, and how do you kind of face,
Way you're
like,
breaking
as you
up
go
life.
as a human going through the world. Yeah, love. You got to have a lot of love towards fellow man. You got to have some karma. Leave things,
Right.
Just like grandma, leave things better than you found it. Treat people like you want to be treated or better. And then service, being, should be in service to mankind. Is kind of
Yeah.
where I was at. I was thinking, like, isn't that important?
Yeah.
Not just being a net taker, but can we be a net giver to fellow people, right? Not just draining
that book's a
resources,
go-giver.
but somehow
Bob
adding
Burke.
back.
He's been on my podcast. It's funny because when we use the term go-giver, it's really he's a go-giver.
Oh, it's great. Yeah.
We use the term go-getter, and it's really go-taker. Like you're go-taking things.
Yeah.
That's why he made it the go-giver, because you want to be
Go-giver.
You always want to be in the long end of the giving stick, right? If everyone's fighting to give more to the other person, you imagine what the world would be like? It'd be unbelievable. It would be totally opposite of where we are now.
It would be it's actually the total opposite, right? And then the last one is like faith, hope, and prayer. Things depending on where you're at in the spirituality spectrum. You're going to have different levers there on faith, hope, and prayer. And so that's the topics, just 12 topics. And and not really sure how, but in that entrepreneurial grind, right? The iterations. This is how nutty I was when I was in Vietnam. I had crafted the book, and I was starting to plan bits and pieces of how to execute this. How does a jar going to come together? What is a traveling podcast? And I didn't even have that idea together yet. I had 6 whiteboards drilled in down my hallway in my apartment. So, in Vietnam, you're like in these places, you basically call up some guy, and he comes over, a handyman with a couple of, screws and some guys. And next thing you know, you got 6 whiteboards drilled down your hallway.
Put ideas down and stuff.
Yeah. Just stand there and look at the wall and just write down ideas and think. A lot of just iterative thinking, in that creative process. Right. And get it out and come back in the morning, and it's there.
Yeah.
I was going to say that for me, this is a one of the best things that I ever did in my life was put up 6 whiteboards.
War rooms. They call it the war room. What it is, giant whiteboard. And they go in and they put ideas down, because you can't work it out in your head. It doesn't work that way. A little bit, you're going to lose things.
I'm not that way. Yeah. I'm for sure a tactile person. And on the other side, I had a giant map of the U.S.
Okay.
Yeah, just opposite. And that was planning the trip, the road trip, the actual trip. Well, no, I'm sorry, from the U.S. So planning.
Vietnam, so that's what I'm saying.
Oh, I was in Vietnam now.
And you're planning your trip, your podcasting journey into the United States from Vietnam.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I mean, you weren't working at this point, were you? Were you still working?
Yeah, actually. Yeah, I had a I had the full-on corporate job.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. That's a big
deputy CEO.
But anybody CEO, as far as I'm concerned, has a big importance.
Clocked it.
I don't know what it is, but
I don't know what I was doing. I was looking at everything that CEO wasn't signing.
Right.
Everybody's got a title. It was my job was just whatever the CEO didn't want to do.
Like deputy mayor, deputy governor. That's always the person that does the work for the governor.
It wasn't really that. I'm not sure I really want to be a CEO too, though. Like the loneliest job on the planet. God.
I mean, nobody.
And mentors. You're on your own. For all the CEOs listening, find that person, you find that coach or mentor you do need one, because it is a really lonely job. And I've talked to a lot of them. I've known a lot of them.
Yeah. Because
you need somebody.
Yeah.
If you don't have anybody,
there you go. That's easy.
And you need 6 whiteboards.
Well, maybe not Vietnam, but it's easy.
Yeah. You just call somebody. It is easy in corporate headquarters. So really, that's where I was during COVID, and really, finished the book, put together the idea, had all the planning prepared, and started doing the little details to get everything ready. Planning a business, the launch of, what is a small business.
Vietnam during COVID, where they
starting a small business. Yeah, it was. They had a pretty interesting strategy. Right. The first one was lock the country down, and for the first wave, we were locked inside mostly, but just some masks here and there. Right. There was no vaccine available for Vietnam for the first year, and so we didn't have to take a vaccine. We didn't have to. There's none of that. There was no real COVID running around. It would pop up here and there. They just locked the building or locked the city down, and exactly. And people would just disappear. Like they just do whatever they want to do. And it was great. There was no COVID. We operated under a no COVID situation until then they opened the doors for a minute, and then everybody, and then and they had the vaccine, and and then it turned into a wild situation for a while. But it was really a great place to be. We did have, I have to say, I got lucky on the second wave. I was locked in my apartment. Basically, we were in lockdown for 6 months.
How did you get food?
You were allowed to go to the food theoretically twice a week to go to the market. But basically, they can control that each commune and stuff, and they allow people to go out. I had some different. I had a good driver who had a military uniform, so he'd pick me up on the motorbike, and we'd stealth around with a big white, like we were being stealth because some big old white guy in the back of this motorcycle.
Is that a car?
Well, because in this case, he couldn't drive the car on the street. It got so bad the car wasn't allowed on the street. So the only way you could move around was by motorbike, and then he had the green uniform, so he wouldn't get stopped. So it was kind of cool. For 1 month, the military dropped off food. That was the height of the banana. That was bananas moment.
It wasn't like you're like, I'm going to go back.
But the military's obviously
no flights. Nobody let you in.
There were no flights.
It's a good time for reflection, though.
Yeah, it's really hard to get out. I was so lucky. Zoom calls in the morning and the afternoon. The rest of the time was for me to stare at my whiteboard, finish up the book, work on the questions, think about how am I going to set this business up? What's it going to look like? What's the expense structure? How long can I go? What kind of team do I need? How do you monetize?
I mean, that's what it was. Your business
podcast,
idea was,
especially
I'm going to be an entrepreneur and I'm going to host a podcast. That was your business idea? Okay, that was my marketing idea. I'm like, I'm never going to make money doing this. I'm not joking. So what am I going to do? And you're like, oh, we're going to do this. And you're making notes and from Vietnam. You're not even in the United States yet, but you're going to run this business.
Don't even listen to podcasts. Don't want to because I've decided I don't want to know. I had been playing with guitar with equipment and recording. So I was fairly, the equipment and knowledge, I was getting knowledge on recording and stuff. So I had been doing the research, talking to the guitar guy who was also an audio guy, kind of a good engineer. So I was kind of getting my experts lined up.
Did you know what the podcast
I was talking to the experts
at this point?
When it started to come around, it did. It all kind of came together. I knew I was going to be traveling, and I'd be interviewing people, and then I kind of realized, well, I don't know anything about interviewing.
Training, right?
I know about training. I could synthesize anything into a training, but it really did. It hit me somewhere.
Yeah,
was to use the questions. And so I came up with this, I think it's a unique idea, which is all the questions, 400 questions pre-printed.
Yeah, no, I think it's
and they
fantastic.
go into the jar. And when I got that idea, I was like, okay, that I can do. Like this is potentially different. It plays to my strength. It'll be something I don't see it now. I can look and see there's not a lot like this. There's nobody traveling.
It's called the Fermented Adventure.
and
He goes to breweries and wineries and stuff like that. I mean, I don't know.
Oh, fun. Yeah, he's way smarter than I am.
Right. He gets
that sounds like a lot more fun.
Questions. Okay, so you pulled out.
So I wrote them from the book.
444 questions.
Yeah. So I put up, I sat down, I started, and when it was super painful, Mitch, if you get to that, you've written the book, editors, you get through it, you've seen this word so many times over 3 years. You just hate, and you hate the book at this point. You don't even like it. It's not even your friend anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard. And so there I was. I had submitted it to the printing and everything, and now I had to face it page by page to extract the questions. Oh, it was literally rewrite. I had to rewrite every word. So I literally put up on the screen. On one side was the letter, and on the left side I organized some Excel spreadsheets and started cranking out, content from the letter. What would I want? What does this letter present to me in a way of a question for somebody, a life question, somebody sitting across from me, and try to put myself in that position. And I think it's like, if you're starting a business, you want to frame it in the way of the customer somehow. Right. Yeah. So, and that's kind of what I went about it was what's going to be that customer experience for people as they sit down. And I did start to get through and analyze, the questions from that viewpoint.
Right.
And am I going to get what I want out of it? I'll come back and touch on the 1.2. I did for sure. I was going to monetize the pod, and I thought I could make a business out of this, which turns out to be a little stupid. To your point, a little naive. A wee bit naive, but I'm okay with being a little naive because it still gives me hope.
People would be like, "That was like impossible," and you do it. You didn't know any better, right? Right.
I didn't want to know better.
Blow up your whole thing here.
I didn't want to know better
to do this. So.
Yeah, and partly I wanted to do it for me. A lot of cathartic stuff. So it was a little self-therapy, and I thought,
right.
I want to see where it leads. I'm kind of a real fan of what you start. That may not be what you end up. That's not the real
journey starts. You never end up.
It is that ability to.
So you don't end up. So you were excited about that, like what's going to happen? Who am I going to meet? What questions are they going to? How are they going to answer the questions? Yeah, but going back to the business model, I mean, you're a finance guy, you're a corporate guy. You kind of put together probably some sort of a business plan, right? In terms of what you think it's going to look like.
Yes.
Well, I don't think I could write a business plan for a podcast. I'd be like, okay, well, we're going to make stuff, and maybe we'll get some sponsors. Like I 4 years, I now have 2 sponsors.
I have a whole white paper.
Cover my costs, and that's it.
Okay. I have a whole white paper on it. Yeah. I was a good strategy guy. I could write a lot of BS.
You didn't.
Yeah. It did, and so there's some interesting things. The paper's not exactly correct. The paper, not really. And things I also know things in that paper may come, but they're going to come later. Quite often I'm a little bit, it's like I'm ambitious, right? But I've got the timelines wrong. I've got the outcome pretty close. The experience of the sitting with people was exactly like I imagined it. It was really weird. I role played and dreamed and thought so much about the driving and going to places and everything, going to hotels and checking out and it really was eerily what I imagined many, many times. The biggest exception was the beginning was the way I knew people would answer they'd answer the questions based on their own life story. But what I missed was that they would interpret the question differently than I wrote it. Yeah. But
That
somewhere
way, yeah.
like Mitch, you should have seen my face when people start reading. It's black and white, and they're
Right.
going over, over in another
Find
direction,
these guests.
which is fascinating. So we used there's a kind of a three ways. One is we do a kind of a simple post, not
Okay.
even just a cheap boosted post, $2, like a $2 one on Facebook. The jar is coming to Tampa, Florida.
Do you get a lot of
be a
responses
guest.
then? A ton.
We get enough. Yeah, we get enough. Enough where people invite me into their homes. That's what we're looking for. Right? People, interesting people have a story
set up all your stuff on their kitchen
have
table
a place to go.
Right? An interview. That's what I used.
Yeah.
I used to do the same thing.
Exactly.
I didn't do it at the kitchen table, but I would go into the conference room or I would go to their place, set it up. I had the mic stands and the whole thing. And I wasn't doing video though in those days. You're audio only, right?
Yeah, I'm audio only. I'm doing some iPhone recordings for snippets. Yeah, I've been looking at setting up 2 iPhones, which would it's pretty simple to do. But you end up with more files, more media.
Discovered
Zoom, it's more data.
I'm like, well, I can do this all. I don't need to go see people. I can get them on video. Now I got videos put up on the YouTube channel. This is great. And then I switched to the studio recently, but.
Well, and I think for you too is the guests are now audio.
They're much more
competent
than these. I connect with people around the world, and they have headsets and mics, and they're all ready to go. From Singapore or whatever. I've connected with people everywhere. Yeah,
absolutely. So I think I've run. It's been an interesting first half, and I don't think every entrepreneur can do it. But I've taken a break for a couple months.
You're still on.
Yeah, I was on a little intermission to step back and. I'm still on. Well, I took an intermission, and then it kind of turned into some more work. But I did take a full-on break. Right, I took a proper 6-week break. Visited my kids, visited friends. So 2 weeks here, 2 weeks there, 2 weeks there, and then went back to that lake house you saw me at, and that was a real reflection spot where I was sharing with you that the stories that I've heard from a couple hundred people, the amount of mental health stuff that's come about is surprised me. Their journeys and struggles, not just the struggle of the mental health illness, but the struggle to get treatment, to find support, to come to terms with what's going on,
like a little bit
with
of a
them
journey
or people around, people they love. I didn't.
Right.
I did this kind of for me. And I found out it wasn't about me
because it's 35 minutes in. Let's take a commercial break. And that's what I do want to get into. That's perfect. Let's talk about mental health and all the things that you learned. And because it's very relevant to even business owners. Everyone else is struggling. And they're all doing it silently. So let's roll the commercials and then we'll come right back.
Here's a word from our sponsors.
Looking to market and grow your business? Or perhaps you're just getting started and want to hit the ground running? AWeber is the best choice for online email marketing and automation of your business. From maintaining a subscriber list to drip campaigns and landing pages, AWeber gives you tools and integrations that make marketing easy and fun. As our partner and sponsor, we use all their tools to promote the podcast and market our law firm. AWeber, the best alternative for online marketing. For over 30 years, the Alternative Board, or TAB, has built a thriving community of forward-thinking CEOs and business owners who want to radically improve their companies. Through unique combinations of one-on-one business coaching, participation in monthly TAB board meetings with other non-competing owners, a suite of strategic tools, and customized strategic planning workshops, TAB membership can deliver greater strength to your business and a better work-life balance for you and your family. All packaged in a streamlined and affordable service that the people at TAB invite you to try risk-free. Maybe you're looking to get into podcasting, or you just want to market your business. Maybe you want to do it for enjoyment, or because you have a message you want to get out there. One of One Productions is a New Jersey-based studio just over the George Washington Bridge that caters to the booming business of podcasting. They offer a comfortable atmosphere using the latest technology available to record your podcast. And they are a full-service media company offering both audio and video production services, creating both audio and video podcasts, as well as video shorts for business and personal use. Professional audio equipment packages are available through their website for all budgets, and be sure to check out their podcast guesting kit, created especially for our listeners.
Follow the link in the show notes to learn more about all of our sponsors. And now back to our show.
You know, when I used to do this on Zoom, I would just put the videos up. I mean, I'm not a video editor, so that's not going to happen. So now with the studio, I can put this stuff in when we do it, and then I just throw it up on YouTube. I edit the audio version. That I know how to do. So, but yeah, see, podcasting. Now you're into podcasting. But I mentioned before that, I think that a lot of people struggle with, mental health. That's why it's such a big topic in corporate America. I told you I want to connect you with my friend Michelle, and that you started this journey. So, keep sharing with me the kind of things that you experienced and were, the things that people started sharing with you.
Yeah. So as I was mentioning, I think as I researched a little bit about mental health, was on the reflection part, I was seeing, exactly what those, one is there is a crisis. I mean, the first thing I was Googled was mental health in America. I just kind of just randomly typed it in, and the first thing that popped up was the White House signed, this kind of 7-point plan about a year ago to help battle it. Right. And I was like, wow, okay, I haven't seen that, and I read it, and it was all really good, logical stuff. Like they were trying to implement a couple of the big changes that I think are kind of relevant. One is integrating it into medical. And stop this nonsense of your physical health being a completely different system and operation. It doesn't make any sense, right?
Like it's not real.
It's connected, right? Yeah, it's like it's not real, and and it does manifest itself physically as well. So you're going in for a heart attack. You didn't, it may be physical, but because a lot of that could be caused by stress. Yeah. So we're treating, almost no matter how you look at it, you're treating symptoms at the hospital, not root cause. And I'm a huge root cause guy. So that was like, oh, I'm in, that's interesting. And the other one was training at the workplace. To your point, bringing training and education to the workplace as a distribution point. So people can get that, we can get it in the knowledge and tools, resources in people's hands. And I've got a big education background. I mean, I've not personally responsible, but I have been somewhere in the org chart responsible for probably 1 million people being sitting down with and learning financial literacy, in my time in Asia. We recruited a lot of agents, created a lot of seminars for clients, and a lot of it was really educating people on finances. So I've got a good training now. I know how to build training and distribute it, communicate it. So that was resonating with me. Here's something that's kind of up my alley. I'm seeing it. I'm traveling. I've got a voice. I'm not a really big voice, but I'm trying to build a bigger and bigger voice and a platform for people. And I thought maybe I can do something. And a lot of people I met, as I shared with you, were becoming entrepreneurs out of their struggles. Their life had taken them on some turn, and they said, you know what, I'm going to be in service to mankind. I'm going to start a clinic. I'm going to start a halfway house. I'm going to become a yoga teacher focused on mental health, or,
a lot of people
relieving the stress
at work, and didn't even recognize it or acknowledge it. And then when the pandemic hit, they're working from home, their life's changing. They're like, they didn't realize how much they really didn't like what they were doing. A way of life. Yeah, exactly.
It's PTSD.
Such a way of life. They were like numb to the fact that they were, just distraught with life. And I think we all woke up a little bit, That's why this is booming entrepreneurship.
It's absolutely
there's no coincidence
perfect.
that, the great, what do they call that? The great resignation or something. There's no coincidence that everyone quit. They didn't stop working. Like nobody wants to just wander around the earth. Well, you do, but other people don't want to just wander around and talk to people. You're doing, right? They want to have a job and they want to feel productive and, like you said, give back or start a clinic or whatever. So they're not going to leave the workforce. They're just going to shift over. And that's why there's this big boom in entrepreneurship. Just different kind of entrepreneurship, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. And they were,
A lot
I mean, they were
of things were
accidentally intentional
yeah,
now,
exactly.
right? So
Yeah, but
they ended.
I know
Yeah.
that's the problem.
Yeah.
A lot
This
of
is the
people fail
accidental part.
because they're not happy with what they're doing, right? They have no business training or background. You know, you went the opposite way. You had corporate training and finance and everything, and you went out into the world. A lot of people, they
Yeah.
lose their job or they're unhappy, and then they just go out there and they don't take a course and they don't do fundamental things. They don't strategically plan things out.
Yes.
They certainly don't put whiteboards up in their room, right? Because you're a planner, you're a strategic guy. So a lot of people don't have that, and it's
Yeah.
you know, leads to a lot of more frustration. Which now you get the PTSD for what you used to do. Then you're out in the world, right? It's difficult to survive as an entrepreneur. You know, it doesn't have to be, but some people don't see what the tools that are out there to use to make it easier for them, which is what the podcast is hopefully all about, you know?
Yeah. And I think it is good to talk about that. The planning and being consciously, you know, knowing, is this the right time for me? Okay.
Right.
I've made that decision. I don't need to go quit tomorrow.
You planned. You didn't just quit
like
your job
I did, which is, you know, keep.
Right.
No. And it was a long time of planning, and it took a lot of guts at the last, you know, even that last minute. You know, there's a lot of questions. Is this the right thing? Is this the right time?
Right.
Maybe two more years.
To the point where
why
you
not
could
2
keep
more
saying
years?
that all your life. 75.
Yeah, I was 60, so I didn't have any more rolls of the dice. You know, and I wanted to do this while I can still move around. And I had, you know, it was time, right? For me, it was time, and I had enough. I felt enough of potential ideas that something would work out. And so, you know, here I am. I've filed as we talked in a couple weeks ago, I've got a new LLC, nonprofit based. I'm working through the final pages of the application to become a nonprofit. We can't do nonprofit and start
New Jersey. What state are you? Vegas.
Yeah, I'm Vegas.
Okay.
In Nevada. And you know, and I'm working through all those final details, and starting to put the sponsorship package together. So, you know, the idea now going forward as a business that I'm kind of, we talked briefly is really to have, you know, on one arm is a kind of these revenue generators that help feed the ecosystem, that help feed the fund and fund the foundation. And so the podcast eventually earns some kind of revenue, or off my name, you know, public speaking or books or whatever we produce,
you know, programs, that
sponsorships,
things.
Yeah. And then the training arm, and build some training platforms around. And I've have some different ideas and different chats, different discussions with people, some ideas around bringing corporate training on awareness, even using the jar.
I love the concept of the jar. I think it's intriguing, gets people excited. They don't know what they're going to pull out of the jar, what they're going to ask.
And as soon as you hear other people, the part that's one of the things that surprised me of the group session is, as soon as you pull somebody reads their own question, everybody has their own interpretation and their own answer in their head.
Experiences, right? And they look at it through their eyes, and it's totally. And especially if you're traveling around the country, I'm sure there's a total variation with you're in the northwest versus down in the south, right? It's totally different.
Yeah, it's cool. And so, you know, if you imagine you seeing your peers, you know, people you may even have an issue with, or the way that they, you know, on emails, or the way they talk to the boss, or whatever that internal kind of tension is, right? And there's a lot of tension in the workplace, between departments, between department heads, or you know, who knows. And I think if you humanize people, you know, because we do tend to dehumanize, and we're on Zoom now, so it's even a bigger, it's easier even now, because you're not seeing the person and having real contact. But to understand how they think and what they feel and their life experiences of these real life conversations, things that matter, I think it would humanize us, and that connections. And I think when you have connections with people, you know, that's powerful. It does allow you to give some grace to people. You know, like, I understand, you know, yeah, she's always snarky on email, you know, and like, and then you find out their life story, and you're like, good God, how does she get out of bed in the morning?
During the pandemic, I met people afterward that I hadn't met, that I knew, I'd known for 3 years, never met him in person.
Yeah.
It creates a different connection, a better connection.
It's a different
Yeah,
connection.
we were definitely not meant to
Yeah,
stay
it's a
behind
much
a
better
computer
connection.
screen
And
for the rest of our lives. Makes my business much easier. I can connect with all kinds of people, but I still have coffee and lunch, and I want to see people and, go to networking events to actually see people in person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of where I'm at. And I think the part
Uh-huh.
that I've thrown up in the air a little bit, maybe not so entrepreneurial, or maybe it is, because you've seen more entrepreneurs than I have, is I do get the question, what's next, or what, so you're doing the jar, what's going to happen?
Okay.
And I've kind of said, I don't know. I'm comfortable in that I'm an activities guy. Like, I know I've created this activity in this direction and momentum, and I have a wake, and I am plowing through the universe, creating some discourse, right? And there'll be something coming up. Something will rise up to meet
back
me.
to finish.
This path will kind of. I'm on. Yeah, next week I start. My calendar is now.
Okay.
I'm now bling. We started the ads.
Okay.
The machine's fired up. And I just looked at my calendar for next week, and it's just.
Oh, you've been through New York, New Jersey? That was the first half of your journey.
Yeah, I went through I started in Tacoma, Washington, and went all the way across the upper half of the U.S. Up to Maine and down the eastern seaboard. And so I'm headed to Florida and then down the southern half, the east, going to go west.
Speak with.
Think right around New Jersy. I think it was 4. Maybe I was in one city. I might have just been in.
Oh, yeah. So you were way south here.
Yeah, Trenton, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was way south. I'm trying to think if I was up north. I don't think so. I think I passed through. Yeah, passed through. Yeah. And I had 8 in New York City. Yeah, I did 8 in New York. So I spent two 4 days.
A car, a van? What are you driving around with?
Yeah, so I bought a Jagnormous Mercedes Sprinter, put a bunch of logos on it, so you can't miss me. And it's got all my gear in it.
So there's a studio in there?
I don't sleep in it. No, I didn't. Yeah, I didn't put a studio. And I think after even reflection, I could have turned it into a studio. I could have turned it into a bedroom. I could have turned it into my living space. I could have, and that might have been smarter economically. But it would have been tough traveling like that, honestly.
Get a shower and stuff like that. Yeah, unless you got an RV, then that would be different.
With an RV different, then it's, but also then it's like traveling becomes a different animal.
You can't drive everywhere.
Driving becomes a different. You can't drive everywhere. So this is great because it's not the super extended version, but it's a little bit extended. So it's big, but I can still park on most city streets I can find to squeeze into a spot. You would
go and meet them for coffee for an interview, or where would you meet them?
We try to meet. I've done a lot of crazy. I've met in the craziest places: factories, coffee houses. Those are not good. Right. Espresso machines are not kind to microphones. It's like, imagine being my editor. So we've had some tough recordings. I think one of the things to improve this second half is the audio, consistently good audio.
You need
I haven't had the best audio. It's a tough time.
I hear things all the time. You don't hear them. Yeah. So.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And I was using maybe not the best mics. I use some wireless mics for convenience.
Nice wires.
I didn't want to, because all this wire setup
is a mixing board and the whole thing. So you need like a good audio sponsor. You need like a sponsorship from Yamaha or something. Audio Technica.
I need absolutely Rode. I need Rode or Yamaha.
You can get the what's the one, the board that they have. So they have the mics and that would be perfect for you.
Yeah. And if somebody sponsored me like that, I'd go to the effort to set that
reach
gear up.
Out to Rode and say,
but otherwise,
I'm on the road, so I should have a roadcaster. This is what we're doing.
I'm on the road. I love it. That's okay. I'm doing that when we hang up. I just finished my pitch deck, which is great because I just finished like a little while ago. I just finished the sponsor pitch deck because it's been on my since January. It's been iterating and I got to the end and I had a hard time kind of telling the the story, the financial story and the journey. And I just was able to squirt that out, like finally solidify it in my brain and get that document done. So I was really happy. Like this morning, it was like, oh man, now I can go start talking to people. So I'm on the road.
I mean, it's great PR.
What a great one. Road has got a
road podcast, and he's using our equipment and whatever. You're a nonprofit, so you're still a nonprofit, even though you don't have the final approval. You're in
talking
business.
about still in business.
Right.
Yeah, I got it, and it's filed as a nonprofit, right?
Yes. Creative.
So I love that. I'll let you know how it goes. Yeah. I found, some of my favorite. I have a great lawyer story one time. I'll tell you offline. Well, it was a fun one when I was in that big job, the big crazy one in Indo. I had to go fire the largest distributor, and the main attorney. And it was kind of it was like a dirty, nobody really wanted, I mean, it was a terrible thing to do. And, yeah, exactly. And so regional kind of made, the locals wouldn't do it. And, but the regional was forcing it. And, so, it turned out to be me and rightly so. And so the attorney that sat on the board with us, he was mysteriously unavailable. So he sent his junior kid, right? He sent the the young, bright attorney. And I still remember we were sitting there in the car on our way there. We were pulling into the parking lot of this fancy hotel to meet them for a auspicious dinner. And, which turned out to be, handing him some letters. And he looked over at me and he said, "I'll never forget this night in my entire career."
Because of what you did.
Because this guy was huge. I mean, he was legendarily large distributor. Like you wouldn't and he was a legend in the business, in the country, in the business, even in the region. Back to our corporate office, he met with the chairman of the board. I mean, it was a big deal. This guy was giddy excited as an attorney.
So I know
he got to do it.
But what's next? I mean, is there a next
story
yet, or you're going to finish out the podcast and then see what life feels?
Yeah, continue. Yeah, I'm going to finish the podcast out. Start the mental health. I've got the little mental health chat going, and it's really to build out the foundation. I think now, but continue to. So I'm going to do my 111 cities, 444 people. I'd love to meet somebody along the way.
55 cities.
On our
200.
Yeah, I got 50 something cities to go. Yeah. And, our stuff's all on the website. You can find out where I'm going to be.
Once your little break's over.
I'm going to Atlanta, then I'm going to Savannah, Jacksonville, Tampa, Pensacola.
Yeah.
I was going to Charlotte. I canceled it. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I'd been to South Carolina and, just something else happened.
All right. So if anybody's listening, you see the jar, say hi to Ken, and we'll have to check in, a little ways down the road and find out what your next part of your journey is. But if anybody's listening, the lessons here are you can do anything you want, but if you plan it out a little bit, and then life kind of reveals itself. But you still can't just throw caution to the wind. I love a example.
I do like that. Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. Well, Ken, I
be
can't
intentional
thank you enough on a Friday afternoon. We're going to roll the commercials and then, or the closing credits, whatever they're called. And then we'll check in another maybe 6-8 months, see where you are. All right, Ken. Thanks.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Thanks, Mitch. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Accidental Entrepreneur. Opening and closing music written and performed by Howie Moskovich and made to order music. For information about Howie and his music services, please follow the link in our show notes. If you like the podcast, please tell others about us. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, on Amazon Music, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and most of the other podcast directories. If you like what you hear, please leave us a 5-star review and feel free to share our episodes on social media. If you have any questions or comments, ideas for the show, or you'd even like to appear as a guest, reach out to us by email at info@beinackerlaw.com.
The Accidental Entrepreneur is hosted by Mitch Beinacker and produced by Beinacker Law. If you'd like to learn more about our business and legal services, you can find us on social media or visit our website at beinackerlaw.com. Thanks for listening, and be sure to subscribe to our feed to be notified of all future episodes.